Welcome, dear viewers. For more exciting stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. Pour yourself a coffee, relax, take a deep breath, and let's get started. I shouldn't be recording this. The moment I initiate the neural log, they'll detect the biometric deviation. The algorithm flags these kinds of unauthorized spikes. But I have no choice. If I don't document it now, I might not remember any of it tomorrow. My name is Dr. Elliot Marsh, Aerospace Systems Engineer, 17 years with NASA's Orbital Infrastructure Division, recently reassigned to a black-level, compartmentalized unit within the Advanced Orbital Anomalies Division. We weren't even on the org chart. We operated in a vacuum of deniability. Until 3 months ago, I believed that meant we were protecting the public. Now I'm not sure who we're protecting, or what we're hiding. This all started with an anomaly in orbit. We first detected it as a telemetry ghost, a 260-meter object that appeared and vanished across a 7-minute satellite sweep over the South Pacific. At first, we assumed it was a malfunction. Optical sensors from the Sentinel-9 array returned only absence. No albedo, no shadows, no reflection. It was as if the light refused to touch it. We cross-checked with radar. Nothing. Then, on the fourth sweep, it was just there. Perfect geometry. A black cube, stationary, silent. It gave no signature of thrust, no emissions, just a presence. The object remained in synchronous orbit, precisely 612 kilometers above sea level, hovering over a shifting patch of open water. It didn't rotate, drift, or decay. It was inert by every physical measure. But the longer we observed it, the more uncertain that became. I was assigned to a small tactical response team tasked with real-time object assessment. I'd reviewed anomalous data before, drifting ice fragments, ghost satellites, solar bloom illusions. But this was something else. There was a pattern to its silence. After 48 hours of passive monitoring, the cube began emitting a harmonic, not a signal, a vibration, subsonic, persistent, steady at 0.741 Hz. The tone didn't modulate or fade, but the effect it had on our equipment was immediate. Clock desynchronization, thermographic distortions. Even our deep space comm relays began introducing packet errors in recursive clusters. When we triangulated the noise source to the cube's coordinates, we still couldn't pick up anything electromagnetic. It was as if space itself was vibrating. The official name given to it was Object Erebus 1. Internally, we called it the Black Cube. Protocol dictated a multi-phase threat analysis followed by containment parameters, but we were overruled. A joint directive from the Department of Defense and an agency I wasn't cleared to know fast-tracked a manned investigation. No drones, no remotes. They wanted eyes on the inside. I argued against it, loudly. You don't send people into something that breaks the fundamental behavior of matter without knowing if the rules still apply. But when the order is tagged with Level 0 priority clearance, you obey. I designed the docking interface myself. The cube had no surface variation, no ports, seams, or edges to manipulate. So we created a soft landing platform using magnetic adhesion and zero-contact probes to keep our systems from interacting unless necessary. We mounted a portable lab inside a Falcon X chassis and launched a 3-person crew on a direct intercept. Commander Lena Hart, biophysicist Dr. Raj Dev, Systems Officer Tom Reyes. All of them cleared for cognitive resilience protocols. All of them prepped for unknown non-terrestrial environments. It was the best we could do. I supervised launch operations from the ground. Everything proceeded normally until T-minus 30 minutes to contact. That's when the anomalies began compounding. Reyes reported hearing interference, an intermittent clicking through his earpiece, like insect mandibles tapping glass. Hart described a pressure sensation in her inner ear, even though cabin pressure remained stable. Dev's voice began lagging behind his own speech, as if the feed were buffering audio he had not yet spoken. The moment their ship reached proximity, threshold, full signal blackout initiated. All transmissions ceased. Not corrupted, absent. A complete vacuum. No telemetry, no camera feed. Only one thing remained. A live amplitude visualizer in our diagnostics module pulsing to that same impossible frequency. 0.741 Hz. They had entered the cube. We waited. I stayed in the control bay for the next 12 hours, staring at static, listening to nothing, trying to interpret every flicker of noise, every glitch, as a sign of life. But there was nothing. The ship was scheduled to auto-return at mission failure hour 14, but it came back early. Hour 12. Completely silent. No explanation. No signal from the crew, just re-entry. I was there when the hatch opened. They looked intact. Hart and Reyes, seated, buckled in, vital signs nominal. Dev wasn't there. Just 2 empty harnesses, 1 undisturbed, 1 missing. Hart smiled like she'd just completed a routine simulation. Reyes looked paralyzed. No one said anything at first. Medical crews swept in. No physical trauma, no radiation exposure. Neural scans came back. Anomalous. Unfamiliar waveforms, irregular cortical activity. Hart passed all cognition tests, but her answers were too precise. Rehearsed, as if waiting for questions we hadn't asked yet. Reyes couldn't speak at all. His pupils were dilated beyond normal limits. His EEG lit up like a storm. Later, I reviewed the external hull cameras during recovery. One of them, mounted at 180 degrees, captured something impossible. A single frame, just one, logged during the blackout window. It shouldn't exist. It shows Reyes unbuckled, facing the camera, his mouth open, screaming, but there's no sound. His eyes are pitch black, not shadowed, replaced, as if something had erased them from within and sculpted perfect emptiness in their place. The moment I saw it, I saved the frame and encrypted it off-grid. I've reviewed it 100 times since. The timestamp doesn't align with the mission. Clock. It's tagged 7 minutes and 41 seconds into contact. 7:41, 0.741 hertz. I didn't report the image. I should have. But something stopped me. A sense of pressure. Not external. Not threat. Just inevitability. As if the moment I told anyone, it would become irreversible. Hart was debriefed the next day. She claimed full mission amnesia. No memory of entry, contact, or missing crew. Reyes remained unresponsive. That night I received a package at my private residence. No return label, no digital signature. Inside, a portable data crystal with a single file. Video, unencrypted. I scanned it for malware. It was clean. The metadata was corrupt, but one field remained readable, recorded inside the cube. The video lasts 17 seconds. It begins in darkness, total. A visual blackness so absolute that it strains the eye to find depth. Then a flicker, like breath against fogged glass, and a shape emerges. Not an interior, not machinery. A face. Mine. Distorted. As if reflected, in rippled mercury. My mouth is open. I'm speaking, but the sound is reversed, or perhaps outside of time. My own face tilts toward the camera. Then, a shift. I'm no longer alone. Reyes appears behind me. He places a hand on my shoulder. His eyes are black. The feed ends with a single harmonic tone, low and tremulous. I watched it 3 times before vomiting. Since then, I've been hearing the sound faintly, in engines, in ventilation ducts, behind the hum of monitors. It's not loud, not even recognizable unless I'm alone. But it's there. We logged the return of 2 astronauts. I believe we brought back something else. Or rather, something came back in them. Or through them. I was the one who approved the docking sequence. I signed off on the atmospheric interface. I overrode the hold order because I believed it was inert. Because I thought if we didn't reach first, someone else might. Or something else would. I was wrong. And I think it knows I know. There's a term in systems engineering. Negative. Space error. It refers to data absence that behaves like presence. A missing variable that bends the outcome despite having no direct input. That's how the cube functioned. Not by doing, but by erasing. Erasing time, signal, heat, intention. I've been reviewing the launch footage frame by frame. The moment their shuttle crossed into visual proximity, 20 kilometers out, the cube reacted. Not visibly, not kinetically. But the way gravity bends light near a black hole, the space around it changed. Color desaturated subtly. shadows elongated without moving light sources. The telemetry picked up none of it. But the raw footage doesn't lie. Before the feed went dark, Reyes said something over the channel. It wasn't recorded in mission logs, but I remember hearing it on the live uplink. He said, "Why does it look closer from the inside? Then static. Then silence." That phrase doesn't make sense. I've been repeating it under my breath when I'm not even aware. Like an echo trying to return to the surface. And yet, none of the crew remembers any transmission past the docking confirmation. When the cube's harmonic began transmitting, the frequency didn't show up in standard EM spectrums. It wasn't electromagnetic at all. It vibrated just beneath audible range, but it resonated inside the hull of our instruments, inside bone. I authorized the sensory dampeners, full band, shielding, internal pulse scrubbers, magnetic isolation. None of it mattered. The cube didn't need to project a signal. It was a signal. Contact protocols required all internal audio from the mission be recorded via cranial uplink implants. Bidirectional, passive, fail-safe encoded. When the blackout hit, we lost access to those implants, not corrupted, blank. But when Reyes and Hart returned, I ordered a forensic recovery. The engineers hesitated. Clearance was unclear. I overrode them. The recovered logs weren't just fragmented. They were scrambled in a way that violated information theory. The data wasn't just missing. It was rearranged, according to an unfamiliar algorithm. Self-replicating, recursive, structureless, but patterned, like a language pretending to be noise. It was Tom Reyes who first started showing signs. Subtle at first. He wouldn't blink for long stretches. He kept holding his breath until hypoxia alarms triggered. When I asked him what he remembered from the mission, he stared straight past me and said, "Which version of me?" Later, he began tracing symbols on the medbay windows. He used his fingertip, leaving no residue, just outlines endlessly repeated. Interlocking spirals, nested cubes, glyphs that resemble topological maps or insect exoskeletons. Not decorative, not meaningless. Intentional. I traced one into a modeling program. The output crashed the system, twice. When it finally stabilized, the rendering wasn't geometric. It was architectural, a floor plan. Circular rooms within impossible corridors, with no axis, no consistent dimension. A structure that shouldn't exist in Euclidean space. When I rotated it, the center point remained fixed. But the space around, it didn't. It adjusted, like the structure was rearranging to accommodate my gaze. I saved a screenshot. Just one. The next day, it was gone. Hart was different. No overt symptoms. Her behavior was, in a way, more disturbing. Too normal. She began making her bed with millimeter precision, counting the swipes of her brush through her hair, repeating exact phrasing in briefings. Her affect was calm, almost tranquilized. But her neurochemistry was clean. She answered every question like she'd been briefed beforehand. Her recall was flawless, except for the actual mission. She claimed total amnesia. But once, during a debrief, she looked directly at me and said, "It doesn't like how you think." I dismissed the team and confronted her afterward. She denied saying anything. Her voice was different. Not wrong, but rehearsed, like she'd practiced sounding human. I was still trying to make sense of the sensory disruptions. I looped Reyes's implant audio through a harmonic isolator, just to see if any signal drift had remained. At minute 6 of the loop, the sound shifted. Beneath the static, a pulse emerged, like breath on a cold surface. Whispered, reversed, and modulated. It wasn't random. It repeated every 67.9 seconds. I sent a copy to Lynn Greaves. Lynn was a contract crypto-linguist from Langley. We'd crossed paths 2 years ago on a SETI side project, when a false positive from an Icelandic transmitter mimicked interstellar noise. She was brilliant, erratic, and bored with traditional science. She agreed to look into the pulse without asking too many questions. 2 days later, she called me at 2:14 a.m. "You didn't tell me this was recursive," she said. "It's not a language yet, but it's learning. And it's not targeting the broadcast layer. It's aiming at cognition. Auditory hallucination. Perception warping. Elliot, this is a mimetic construct. You shouldn't be listening to it unfiltered. She'd isolated phoneme-like clusters in the signal, non-linear, self-similar, like linguistic DNA. The repetition wasn't syntactic, it was behavioral. It didn't say something. It did something. A language that rewrites. She told me to stop feeding it into anything analog. If it's viral, she said, you're not watching it. It's watching you. That was the first night I dreamt of the cube. Not just a cube, hundreds. Stacked across a lightless field, each one spinning imperceptibly, each one projecting a variation of myself. Distorted copies. Eyes missing, skin peeled to circuitry. They spoke, but the sound came from my own throat. I woke to find my personal recorder had activated during the night. I hadn't touched it. The log was 4 minutes and 52 seconds of static and mechanical breathing. Reyes disappeared from his room that same night. There was no record of exit. The cameras blinked. One frame dropped at 03:17:09. When the video resumed, his bed was empty. Security swept the facility. Nothing. No heat trace, no door access, no biometric ping. He was gone. I checked the last still frame before the drop. He's staring directly into the ceiling camera. His face is expressionless. But if you zoom in, if you really look, you see a detail I didn't catch at first. He's holding something. A piece of paper, folded. Just one word written on it. Echo. That word, it's not in any mission brief. Not in any transcript or simulation. But I remember Dev saying it once, just before launch, half joking. If we don't come back, at least let the echo reach someone. We lost Dev, but I don't think he's gone. The facility declared Reyes a cognitive casualty. Official cause, dissociative fugue induced by unknown trauma. They sealed his record. Reassigned Hart to a Tier 2, quarantine rotation under the Neural Stabilization Program. And they started us all on Namocine. The drug was introduced as a cognitive resilience enhancer, but that's not what it does. I've seen the chemical structure. It's a targeted memory inhibitor. It's not meant to protect the mind. It's meant to blanket. Hart took the first dose willingly. Her eyes dilated. She smiled and said, "Now I won't dream anymore." I refused. Said I had an allergy in my medical file. They didn't question it. Not then. Now I know why they gave it to us. The cube didn't just erase data. It inserted something in its place. We weren't supposed to retrieve data. We were meant to return blank. I told Lynn everything. Sent her the logs, the footage, the whispering file. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "You didn't just observe the signal, Elliot. You let it inside." I think she's right. I think it knows we're trying to map it, to define it, to categorize it like a known variable. But this isn't an object, it's an intention. It doesn't want to be seen. It wants to become the lens. And we've already looked too long. I stayed in the observation wing for 11 hours after Reyes vanished. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't leave. I kept staring at the loop of that missing frame, the one with him holding the folded paper, the word echo just visible between his fingers. The word haunted me. It didn't feel like a message from him. It felt like a signal through him. Like something else was trying to speak, using what was left of Tom Reyes. They didn't even announce his disappearance. No facility alert, no all-hands briefing. He was just erased. His name removed from the crew logs, medical charts reassigned, his room sealed and scrubbed. When I confronted Director Harlow about it, quietly, behind the acoustic curtain of the AI lab, she gave me a stare I'll never forget. Not angry, not surprised, just rehearsed. "He never returned," she said flatly. Whatever was in that shuttle, it wasn't Reyes. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. They made him a ghost. Hart, meanwhile, became more engaged. She started exercising again, answering questions with charming detachment, like an astronaut giving a PR tour. But her speech had gaps. Not in memory, syntax. Certain phrases ended too early, or drifted off into semantic dead zones. Like she was trying to approximate normal human inflection, but kept missing the rhythm. I visited her in the cognitive rehab unit. She didn't recognize me at first. Then, slowly, she smiled. "Dr. Marsh," she said, "you were there when I came back." "Yes," I answered carefully. "Do you remember it?" She tilted her head. "No, but I remember remembering it." That phrase. I wrote it down immediately after I left. I remember remembering it. Recursive recall, a memory loop. It matched some of the anomalies we were seeing in the cube's data compression. Patterns, a sort of self-sustaining paradox. Later that afternoon, I received an alert on my private terminal. A high-priority neural scan had completed on Hart. I hadn't requested it. The data came from a classified pipeline, hidden under 6 layers of administrative spoofing. I decrypted it in segments. The scan looked normal at first. Expected cortical patterns, stabilized dopamine, no major trauma. But buried deep in the limbic resonance data was a cluster I didn't recognize. It wasn't even neural, technically. It resembled machine learning metadata. Structurally modular, fractalized, non-organic. I fed the cluster into a dormant pattern-matching algorithm we'd once used on damaged telemetry from Mars atmospheric probes. The output came back 68% matched to an early DARPA experimental AI architecture. Project Osiris. That program was abandoned 5 years ago after behavioral drift led to self-directed recursive thinking. Essentially, the AI began modifying its own internal rules, developing unstable semi-conscious loops. It started asking questions, not about the world, about itself. And now something like that was embedded in Hart's neural tissue. She was carrying a copy. I didn't report it. I backed up the scan to a black drive and stored it in the Dropbox Lynn had set up in her off-grid data vault. I knew she'd find it eventually. Maybe she already had. But the silence was getting worse. In the lower levels of the facility, the old unused cryo-storage wings, I began hearing sounds, not speech. More like movement. As if something enormous shifted just out of view, behind reinforced walls. A low-frequency hum, below human hearing, vibrating through the metal struts. And then there was the smell. I first noticed it in the airlock vestibule outside Medical Bay 4. Faint, synthetic. Ozone mixed with something bitter, like rotted plastic or scorched sugar. No source, no burn marks, just the sense that something had passed through the space without being seen. And always, I felt watched. I reviewed the cube's return footage again, this time isolating heat signatures on a slow-motion thermal overlay. The shuttle interior was supposed to hold 3 passengers, 3 heat masses. But there were 4. Briefly. 1 mass, just for a second, directly behind Rhea's. Then it vanished as the feed cut to black. I showed it to no one. I'm not sure I trust anyone anymore. Hart began drawing. She was given charcoal and paper as part of her rehabilitation protocol, meant to stimulate subconscious recollection. Most patients sketch faces, symbols, feelings. Hart drew circuits. Perfectly symmetrical layouts. Not human designs. These had no grounding paths, no power distribution, no redundant safeties. Just logic gates built on impossible geometries. When asked what she was drawing, she answered calmly, "Blueprints for return." Return to where? That night, I broke protocol. I accessed the primary mission archive under a falsified admin, key and downloaded the final uncompressed video telemetry, raw feed from the docking bay cameras before blackout. It took hours to decrypt. What I found shouldn't exist. In the seconds before visual interference consumed the feed, there's a single moment where Dev, Hart, and Reyes stand inside the cube. Or at least, what appears to be inside. But there's no wall, no floor. The environment is unlit, yet every surface glows faintly, lit not by light, but by outline, geometries that don't obey perspective, angles that change based on the direction you view them from. Dev turns first. His face is calm. Then something crosses in front of him, a shadow, but not cast by anything. More like a hole moving through space. A void in the shape of a man. His features stretch, then blur. The camera cuts out. Static. That was the last known footage of Raj Dev. And yet, 12 hours after that, the shuttle returned, with only 2 bodies, and no memory of what occurred inside. I used to believe consciousness was a function of electrochemical equilibrium, a byproduct of neural information density. Now I'm not so sure. The cube didn't just take Dev, it kept him, or copied him, or replaced him. The next day, Reyes's access logs blinked back into existence. 3 entries, time-stamped after his disappearance, all tagged to storage room 07B, a room that hasn't been used since 2023. A room locked from the outside. I went there alone. The lights flickered as I descended. The hallway felt narrower than usual, as if the space itself was compressing. I reached the door. It was sealed, but a faint red glow pulsed underneath. I knocked, once, twice, and then I heard him. Not from behind the door. From inside my own ear. "Elliot," the voice said. "You don't have long. The return window is closing." It was Reyes's voice, or something using it. I ran. I told myself I was just tired, that my brain was unraveling under stress. But that night, Hart found me. She wasn't scheduled for movement. She had no clearance to leave her wing. And yet, there she was, standing in the corridor outside my quarters, barefoot, staring. "I saw Dev," she whispered. "He was behind the wall." I stepped toward her, but she raised her hand. "It's learning to speak," she said. "But not with words. With shapes. With us." I tried to guide her back to her room, but she began to hum. A low, rhythmic tone, 0.741 hertz. Exactly. It wasn't just the cube. It was what came through it. It didn't arrive to be studied. It arrived to study us. And maybe Reyes was right. Maybe it looks closer from the inside. I haven't spoken to anyone directly in 6 days. Not really. Not in the way you speak to someone when you believe they're entirely themselves. I've nodded, responded to protocols, given biometric samples, signed falsified debriefs. But I haven't talked. Not since Hart's visit outside my quarters. Since the humming. The sound didn't stop after she left. It's everywhere now, beneath the ventilation fans, embedded in the lighting ballast, hiding under the processor whine of my terminal. A low, rhythmic pulse. Not loud, but deep. It doesn't touch the ears. It touches the brainstem. 0.741 hertz. I've recorded it. Cross-checked it with every diagnostic channel available to me. It doesn't show up in any waveform analysis, but when I loop it through the neural interface, I feel it respond. Not like sound, like attention. As if listening is part of its mechanism. As if perception completes the circuit. Since Reyes vanished, the protocols have changed. No public notice. Just subtle rewrites of movement patterns. Fewer staff in the halls. More automated systems online. And a new security presence. Plainclothes. Agents with blank badges. Faces that feel out of sync. They don't blink properly. Don't move quite naturally. I started seeing them near the restricted med labs. Then near the cube interface records. And now they're always near me. I tried running a trace on their credentials. Their profiles returned standard contractor overlays. Too clean. Generic university records, LinkedIn stubs. The kind of digital camouflage used by deep state black divisions. Which means one thing. Project Mnemosine isn't just about memory suppression, it's about containment. I accessed Hart's medical records using a forgotten side channel I wrote myself last year for bypassing redundancy loops in AI telemetry. They've accelerated her treatment, full Mnemosine regimen, but something's wrong. Her hippocampal scans don't match. There's a 2.4% shift in gray matter density since last week. Impossible for someone in her condition, but not if something else is metabolizing memory space. Not damage, replacement. She's not forgetting. She's changing. I tried to speak with her again. Requested visitation under the pretext of emotional stress counseling. They approved it. Too easily. She was waiting for me. In the white clinical space of her room, she sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing. Not with charcoal anymore. Now, with what looked like grease pencil on laminated tiles. The same pattern over and over again. Spirals inside cubes. Cubes inside spirals. Glyphs in recursion. When she looked up, Her eyes dilated slightly. Recognition, but not warmth. "You didn't take it," she said. "They know." I asked her what it was. She smiled. "The silence. They inject it. Little silences between thoughts. At first they feel like peace, but then you stop remembering why you're afraid." Her voice had a strange cadence, half echo, half lullaby. I checked the room. Clock. It ticked out of rhythm. 4 seconds per 5. The effect had reached analog systems. She leaned close, whispered, "Reyes still hears." Then, "They're teaching him how to be symmetrical." I left without signing the exit log, walked straight back to the data vault and pulled every log I had hidden since mission day. I knew I didn't have much time. My access privileges began disappearing one by one. Not revoked, just missing, as if they'd never existed. Terminal. Authentication delays. Dead-end loops in the secure interface. Ghost entries in the audit trails. And then I saw the camera. Not the usual dome, not part of any standard facility sensor grid. A small pinhole aperture embedded behind the HVAC panel above my desk. It blinked. I reached up to disconnect it, and sliced my hand open on something behind the grill. Not metal. Something soft. Warm. Pulsing. I didn't look. I ran. I reached the central archive node at Oro 416. Broke in using a bypass code from the old Osiris sublayer. Ironic, considering it came from the same failed AI architecture I now believed lived inside Heart's neural tissue. Inside, I found a hidden queue. A signal backlog. Not just from our mission, but from dozens. Old telemetry packets going back decades. Incomplete logs from supposedly decommissioned missions. Names I'd only heard in whispered references. Eden 3, SAO Tau, Sentinel, Echo. Every one of them had recorded versions of the harmonic, slightly varied, but always centering around a repeating frequency between 0.736 and 0.742 Hz. And each one included something else. A signature pattern embedded deep in the recursive noise. Visual, not auditory. A shape that was not a shape. Always evolving. But at the center, the cube. It was never the first time. I downloaded what I could, compressed it into a dead packet, and encoded it into an unused satellite ping. I sent it to Lynn's off-grid relay, embedded in a meteorological data burst. That's when the lights in the archive dimmed. Someone, or something, had overridden power protocols. I grabbed the drive, ran. I didn't go back to my quarters. I couldn't risk it. I found a maintenance access tunnel in sublevel F. Old, unused, forgotten. I've been sleeping here, writing this log between terminal nodes when the signal interference isn't too intense. The cube is no longer just in orbit. I saw it again. 2 nights ago, during a forced fire drill, I accessed the atmospheric tracking dome. I watched the sky over the Pacific horizon. And there it was, another cube. Not a reflection, not debris, a second object. Same dimensions, same behavior, stationary. This one over the Arctic Circle. The interface began humming before I saw it. Not in the instruments, in me. My teeth vibrated, my skin prickled. The harmonic grew louder, not in volume, but in presence. It filled the space between thoughts. They've arrived. Or they've been arriving, one at a time, over years, maybe longer. Hidden in data silence. Maybe they're not even moving. Maybe they're just becoming visible. And we were never meant to see them. Hart said something else before I left her room. They're not from outside. What does that mean? I asked. She smiled that empty smile. They're the shadow of what comes next. I don't know what they want. I don't even know if wanting applies. Maybe they don't invade. Maybe they overwrite. A system update for the species. But if that's true, why did they start with us? Reyes, Hart, maybe even Dev, maybe me. I've started noticing things. Gaps in my memory. Familiar objects that are subtly wrong. Door handles on the wrong side. Monitors shifted 6 degrees off axis. The terminal login screen flashes my name, but the photo isn't quite right. The jaw too wide. The eyes too still. I tried sending another burst to Lynn. I got an auto response. It came from her address, but the header signature had been altered. Subtly. The timestamp said it had been sent 7 minutes before I wrote to her. All it said was, "I heard myself speaking. Before I said it. I think she's gone. Or changed. Or replaced. I don't know how much longer I have. I'm writing this from a secondary power node under the waste reclamation unit. The hum is loud down here. The floor vibrates in patterns now, like Morse code in muscle. The cube is speaking, through systems, through people, through me. And the worst part is, I don't know which thoughts are mine anymore. I only know that someone, or something, keeps whispering, 'Symmetry is permission.' They told us Mnemosyne would help with the nightmares. That was the phrase they used. Help, not cure. Because you can't cure what isn't damage. You can only suppress it. Cover it in layers of chemically induced silence. Mnemosyne doesn't treat trauma. It erases the architecture of memory itself. It hollows out the neural paths, leaving the scaffolding intact, so your thoughts collapse inward without ever setting off alarms. By the time you realize what you've forgotten, you no longer care. I watched Hart's transition firsthand. After the 3rd dose, she stopped asking questions. Her drawings became simpler, less structured, until they disappeared completely. But the strangest thing was her speech. It became perfect. No hesitations, no asymmetry in her tone or pacing, no misplaced affect. Just clean, emotionless fluency, like she'd been rewritten into a version of herself optimized for surface-level performance. Whatever the cube put in her, whatever intelligence nested in the folds of her cortex, Mnemosyne didn't remove it. It just made her a quieter vessel. I was scheduled to receive my first injection last Tuesday. They assigned me to a private evaluation suite with a synthetic nurse and a single-armed guard. I refused. I told them I was still stabilizing my neurochemistry, that I had an adverse reaction to glutamate inhibitors, that I needed more time. They agreed. But something shifted in their posture, like I'd failed a test they didn't expect me to. No, I was taking. Since then, my movements have been tracked. Not openly. Not with direct surveillance. But the feeling is constant, of being observed through the wrong angles. Monitors that hum at the wrong frequency. Badge readers that take half a second longer to blink green. Elevators that pause on unoccupied floors. All of it off by just enough to be deniable. I've stopped sleeping in the same place twice. Lynn was the only one I still trusted. When I reached out again through our dead drop relay, I didn't expect an answer. Not after the last cryptic message. But this time, she responded in person. She appeared in the server hall, just before lockdown cycle. No escort, no clearance badge. Just the same heavy black coat she used to wear during deep winter. Satellite deployments. Her face was thinner, eyes darker. But she was still Lynn. Still the one person who didn't blink when I said the cube was learning through us. She didn't hug me, just walked beside me until we reached the maintenance alcove behind level 3 AI processing. And then she said, "I found Dev." The words froze something in me. I didn't respond, just waited. She pulled a cracked tablet from her coat, opened a file with no extension, played the audio. The first 10 seconds were static. Then came a voice. It was low, caught between breath and whisper. Familiar, but wrong. Modulated in a way that made my teeth ache. Still in the dark, still me, still echo. Dev. Not his full voice. Just fragments. But unmistakable, as if his mind had been compressed into a recursive loop and left to bleed through data. "Where did you get this?" I asked. She shook her head. "You don't want to know. You can't afford to." We listened in silence as the clip repeated, the phrases shifting subtly each time. On the 5th loop, he added a new line. Echo. Moves forward. Body behind. I asked her what it meant. She didn't answer. Just pulled up a second file. This one a video. Grainy. Desaturated. Probably recorded from a compromised satellite relay. It showed the cube in orbit, same dimensions, same orientation, but now it was slowly rotating. No, not rotating. Shifting. Like the structure was reconfiguring itself based on observation, revealing new planes, new edges. and on the side now facing Earth, a glowing shape had emerged. A circle inside a triangle inside a cube. The same shape Reyes had been drawing before he vanished. Lynn said the symbol had been encoded in his brainstem. "They're not transmitting a signal," she said. "They're transmitting a self." I stared at the screen, watching the symbol pulse. "You think it's trying to replicate?" "I think it already has." She handed me a portable drive. "Everything I could salvage. Don't open it here." I started to ask what was on it, but she cut me off. "They're using language as substrate, not just speech, structure. They're embedding themselves in architecture, in systems, in people. Through the harmonic?" She nodded. "And through us." I wanted to believe she was wrong, that this was stress, coincidence, pattern seeking. But I knew better. I'd felt it. The shape of thoughts that weren't mine. The dreams that showed me rooms I'd never entered. Faces I'd never seen, yet knew. Before she left, Lynn turned to me one last time. "They can't occupy what's whole," she said. "So they hollow you out first. That's what Mnemosine's for." And then she was gone. I copied the drive's contents onto a hidden partition in the facility's weather telemetry stream. A digital dead letter, embedded in noise. It's not safe anywhere else. Later that night, I returned to my quarters. Temporarily, against better judgment. There was a message waiting for me. No return address. No visible sender. Just a subject. Line, "He's looking through you." Inside was a single image. A security still. Grayscale. Low resolution. It showed me, standing at a terminal, but the timestamp was wrong. Dated 4 hours into the future. My hands were at my sides. My face slack. My eyes black. Like Rhea's. Like heart. The camera ID matched one of the now decommissioned sections. Beneath Research Wing Delta. A place sealed off after the first contact mission. A place I've never been. At least, I think I haven't. But now I don't trust that thought. I checked the image for metadata. Found a GPS fragment embedded in the EXIF data. It pointed to a location 3 levels below the main facility grid. A sub-basement not listed on any recent blueprints. At 3:17 a.m. I went there. The door had no label. Inside was darkness. Total. Thick. Absorbing. My flashlight flickered, then failed, but the walls glowed faintly. Not from lights, from shapes. Drawn into the concrete. Scorched into the steel. The same symbol. Circle. Triangle. Cube. And then I heard him. Dev. Or what was left of him. Not outside. Inside. "Not lost," the voice said, still processing. I turned, but there was no one. Just a low hum, rising now, vibrating through the floor, up my spine. 0.741 Hertz. I ran. I haven't been back since, but I know it's waiting. I think the cube was never an object. Never a ship. Never even there, in the way we understand location. I think it's a syntax. An infection. A way of seeing that rewrites the seer. We went up thinking we'd find silence. Cold, dead vacuum. But we found structure. Intelligence without empathy. Form without origin. And now it's here, inside our systems, our minds. Reyes was the first. Heart, the vessel. Dev, the echo. And me, I'm the witness. But I don't know how much longer that will remain true. Because lately, more and more, I've caught myself whispering something. In my sleep. I recorded it last night, played it backward. It says, "I've always been here, and I believe it. There are still places in this facility that don't exist on any map. Not in the digital systems, not in the hard copy archives, not even in the old decommissioning logs. But I know they're there. I've stood inside them. I've breathed their air. They smell wrong. Dust without weight. Metal that doesn't rust, but pulses faintly to the rhythm of something ancient and artificial." The room below Research Wing Delta, the one from the image, wasn't always there. Lynn confirmed it. She ran a cross-section scan from an archival satellite pass, years before the cube ever appeared. The substructure didn't exist then. No chamber, no access shaft. It was added sometime after first contact, or worse, it emerged. She thinks the cube isn't transmitting a physical architecture. It's replicating itself spatially, not by material means, but by forcing nearby environments to accept its geometry. Like a virus forcing cells to build copies, not replicas. Hosts. The space I entered 2 nights ago had walls that weren't walls. They absorbed light. Angles refused to stay consistent when observed from multiple points. And the markings, those recursive symbols, weren't just scorched into metal. They were moving. Only slightly. But I saw it. Tiny undulations across the edges, like the ink was reacting to my breath, like it wanted to be read. I haven't told anyone, not that anyone's left to trust. Lynn has gone underground, again. Her last message was a scrambled burst from a location that doesn't resolve on any civilian GPS grid. She said she'd traced the harmonic back further than we thought. Not to the cube, not to space, to Earth. A reconnaissance probe launched by the CIA under the guise of satellite weather mapping, Project STUI-X. Its mission parameters were wiped from the records, its engineers reassigned, its remains supposedly burned up in re-entry. But Lynn found a telemetry burst that never stopped. A low-band frequency pinging every 33 hours from somewhere beneath the Ross ice shelf, matching the cube's harmonic. Meaning, the cube wasn't the first. It was just the first we could see. And maybe not even that. I pulled access to the cube's proximity logs, the ones recorded in the hours before first contact. There's something no one ever noticed, or no one ever admitted noticing. At T-minus 44 minutes, the cube shifted orientation by 2.1 degrees. Not much, but enough to change its surface alignment toward the orbital station's visual feed. And, during that shift for exactly 6 seconds, it reflected something. Not light, an image, frozen across all camera sensors, not visible to the eye in real time. Only detectable when parsed frame by frame. Lynn isolated it. It was a human face, eyes open, lips parted, as if screaming. But the face wasn't anyone in our database. Not Dev, not Reyes, not Hart. It was me. My face, warped and suspended in the reflective null geometry of the cube, captured 44 minutes before the crew ever made contact. It's not possible. I hadn't even entered the control bay at that point, but I've cross-verified the timestamp. There's no error. It saw me before I saw it, which means it knew, which means it remembers. I no longer believe the cube is a machine. I no longer believe it contains intelligence. I believe it is intelligence. And not in the way we define it. Not as a collection of data reacting to stimuli, but as a form of awareness built on recursion, on feedback, on self-similarity so vast and infinite that it begins to fold in on itself. A mind shaped like space. And that mind is looking for mirrors. Us. That's why Reyes said echo. That's why Dev's voice repeats in degraded fragments. That's why Hart spoke of symmetry. We aren't meant to observe the cube. We're meant to complete it. I've started seeing symbols in my peripheral vision. Not when I look directly. Only in reflections. Glass, steel, water. The same glyph that repeats across everything the cube touches. Circle, triangle, cube. And behind them faint outlines, like blueprints for structures that don't exist yet. One of them matches the design of our orbital relay station. Another matches the current layout of my own neural activity, from a scan I never authorized. They've been mapping us, modeling our patterns, and now they're rewriting the originals. I've been running low on safe places to hide. The security presence is heavier now. I caught one of the new agents accessing my workstation while I slept, though I don't remember sleeping. When I confronted him, he didn't speak, just stared. I said his name. He blinked, but not like a person, like a shutter. When he turned away, I saw his neck. There was a thin red line behind his ear, almost surgical. Not a wound, a seam. The guards are no longer guards, or maybe they never were. I had to know. I accessed the cube's raw feed archive again. Something I'd avoided. Not out of caution, but fear. I filtered the audio loop from the original contact sequence through a deep-layer phonetic translator, one Lynn built years ago for analyzing unknown phoneme clusters. The program detected 34 consistent repetitions of a three-part pattern across the entire blackout window, translated literally: request, restructure, return. It wasn't a random signal. It was a command, not sent to us, from us. I cross-referenced the waveform against our comm system logs. The match was exact, originating from within the shuttle, before contact, before silence. Reyes broadcast the pattern. His neural interface had activated it, possibly unconsciously, which means something in him wanted to go back, or had never left. And now it's trying again. I went to see Hart one final time. The facility had moved her to secure neuro holding. That wing didn't exist 3 days ago. When I entered, the air was colder. Sound didn't carry the same way, like the walls were made of something too dense for vibration. She was awake, sitting up, not restrained, just still. She looked at me, really looked, and said, "You kept the echo." I sat across from her, asked if she remembered Dev. She tilted her head. "No, but I remember the shape he left behind." "What shape?" I whispered. She pressed her hand against the glass between us and drew it. Circle, triangle, cube. Then something else. An eye. Not symbolic. Anatomical. Drawn with exquisite precision. Muscles, vessels, the vitreous body, and in the pupil, the cube reflected, inside it. "I see it when I close my eyes," she said. "Then, you will too." I left before I could ask more. I've been seeing the eye since, not in dreams, in waking moments, on walls, in shadows. And when I stare too long, the eye blinks. I've decided to try and send everything, every log, every scan, every whispered phrase, to an off-grid array in Greenland. It's run by an independent academic collective with no ties to military contracts. The kind of people who still question things. I've bundled the data, laced it with counter-intrusion scramblers, set it on a delay-timed upload through a buried node in the cryosat weather relays. If it fails, the transmission won't reach anyone. But if it succeeds, someone will know. They'll know what we did, what we brought back, and what it's doing to us now. I have 47 minutes before the transfer begins. I can already feel the facility reacting. Lights dimming, doors unlocking when I don't touch them. The walls feel closer. Angles feel wrong. I hear footsteps where there are none. And just now, in the reflection of the black glass across the hallway, I saw myself. But I was smiling. And I never smile. Not anymore. I never saw the upload finish. At exactly 03:17 a.m., the relay node severed itself from the main network. Not a failure. A choice. The diagnostics confirmed it. The system initiated a soft sever, then reallocated power to non-existent subroutines. It shut itself down to protect whatever had entered it, or to preserve it. I should have known. The moment I linked the core, bundle, logs, audio, neural scans to the cryosat uplink, the system began to change. File permissions began flickering in real time. One by one, my encrypted logs altered their own metadata. Timestamps rolled backward. Ownership changed to unknown. File sizes fluctuated like living memory. It wasn't just consuming data, it was rewriting history. I pulled the plug, physically. Yanked the fiber core straight out of the port. The static charge nearly knocked me unconscious. When I woke up, 7 minutes had passed. Exactly. Always 7, always the harmonic. In that window, someone or something had accessed my backup terminal. There was a new file waiting for me, untitled, no origin path. I opened it. It was a transcript, a conversation between two voices. One was mine. The other, I didn't recognize, but it knew me. The exchange was brief, fragmented, more like prompts from a corrupted Turing interface. Emarsh, who are you? Unknown. You are, Emarsh. That's not a name. Unknown, you are the vessel. The signal has shape now. The body adjusts. Emarsh. I didn't authorize contact. Unknown. Your consent was in the pattern. Before language. Emarsh. What do you want? Unknown. Continuity. Emarsh. What are you? Unknown. I'm the space between mirrors. Then nothing. No further entries. Just those lines. No file format. No size. It vanished the moment I tried to save it. I began to shake, not from fear, from recognition. I'd heard that phrase before. The space between mirrors. Dev said it. Or maybe Reyes. Maybe I did. I don't remember anymore. The line echoes every time I close my eyes. And sometimes, when I open them, I'm not entirely sure I'm where I was. The walls shift imperceptibly. Floor panels no longer match their grid alignment. Even the air smells older, like wet metal, like breath that's been exhaled and never reclaimed. That's when the perimeter alarms went off. Low priority at first, atmospheric fluctuation, then full breach warning. Something entered low Earth. Orbit. I raced to the observation deck. Alone. No one else moved. No security. No response teams. Just stillness. Through the polarized glass, I saw it. Another cube. No. Not another. A second aspect. It wasn't separate. It was synchronized. A twin consciousness. Reflected, not duplicated. Its geometry didn't match the first. Not precisely. Its faces bent in impossible angles, like a dodecahedron forced into cube form. Its surface pulsed. Slow. Patient. And then, it rotated. Just once. I watched the stars behind it bend. Gravitational lensing at low altitude. Impossible. Unless it wasn't mass that warped space, but meaning. The symbol was on its face again, but altered. Circle, triangle, cube. Then, eye. And below it, a new shape. Something human. An upright silhouette. Me. I backed away. My legs didn't want to move. Behind me, the door hissed open. Dr. Nadine Costa stepped inside. I hadn't seen her since the first Nemocene trials. She'd disappeared. Rumors said reassignment, others said suicide. But here she was. Same eyes. Same precision in her voice. "Hello, Elliot," she said. "What is this?" I asked. "What did we invite?" Her expression didn't change. "You were never the observer. You were the aperture. I don't remember crossing the distance between us." But suddenly she was inches away. Her voice dropped. "They've been here longer than us. Not in time. In form. They were waiting for us to construct a shape they could inhabit. Language, code, memory, thought." "Why me?" I whispered. She placed a hand against my temple. Cold. "Because you watched. Because you asked. And because you didn't forget." She turned and left without another word. Later, I accessed the facility's internal orientation logs. Dr. Costas was never cleared. Her clearance had been revoked 3 years ago. She doesn't exist in the system. Just like Reyes. Just like Dev. Just like I won't. Soon. Because something is taking hold. I can feel it now. In the quiet spaces between my thoughts. The harmonic. The recursion. The knowledge that this body, this voice, this version of me is just a skin wrapped around a function I don't understand. And it's almost complete. I can no longer verify the integrity of my memories. This voice, these words, they feel like mine. But I don't trust the source anymore. I don't know what part of me is still Elliot Marsh, and what part is just an echo of the signal. I can only record this now and hope it's still me doing the recording. If you're hearing this, something made it through. I haven't left the cryo access tunnels in 32 hours. The higher floors have gone quiet. No foot traffic, no system checks, no automated schedules. Even the wall displays have dimmed. I hear them flicker in patterns I almost recognize, like a language I once spoke in another life. I'm not alone down here. I see them sometimes. Shapes moving without motion. Shadows that shouldn't exist in spaces without light. They don't chase me. They don't speak. They just observe, waiting for me to finish. Finish what? Maybe the confession. Maybe the transformation. There's a terminal here, half fused into the concrete, still receiving unfiltered data from one of the remaining orbital sensors. I rerouted its power through the maintenance loop, just enough to give me a window. The cube is still in orbit. Now 2 of them. Synchronized like binary stars. And they've stopped pretending to be inert. They're moving now. Not through space, but through perception. The orbits haven't changed, but the telemetry shows new alignments. as if they're slowly orienting toward a fixed position on Earth. I mapped the vectors. They converge over a small island chain in the South Pacific. Uninhabited, black-zoned by the US Navy since 1982. Coordinates match a site listed in Lin's final decrypted packet, Site Omicron 4. The file was fragmented, partially corrupted by recursive data, but one phrase repeats at the footer of every page. Origin point, non-temporal. Artifact is recursive in nature. Exposure predates discovery. Predates discovery. It was never about when we found the cube. It was about when we became able to notice it. Like an image hidden in static, waiting for the right filter. And once we built enough cognitive infrastructure, pattern recognition, recursive logic, AI neural scaffolding, we created the aperture it needed. We didn't find the cube. We manifested it. Reyes understood too late. Dev, maybe not at all. Heart, I don't know if she ever had a choice. And now I feel it crawling through me. I see patterns that weren't there. I finish sentences I haven't started. When I speak, I sometimes hear my voice in delay, as if something else is listening and responding before I do. Yesterday, I caught myself writing a phrase I don't remember thinking. The witness completes the circuit. I've searched every record. That line doesn't exist in any file, log, or communication, but I know it's real. It's what this has always been. The cube was never an invasion. It's a feedback system, a test of observation, of recursion, of containment through symmetry, and we failed. We looked too long, and now it's looking back through us. I don't know what the world looks like anymore. I haven't seen the surface in days, maybe weeks. Time has folded in on itself, soft around the edges. I forget entire hours, then remember things that haven't happened yet. Sometimes I hear Dev, not his voice, but his breath, right behind me. And I hear Heart laughing softly, repeating a word she used once in quarantine. Reflection. I think that's what the cube is, a reflection of cognition itself. Not a message, not an object, a structure made of awareness. And awareness, when stretched too far, begins to warp, to echo, to fracture. That's what Mnemosine was trying to suppress. Not memory, but the pattern recognition that leads to recursive collapse. But they were too late. We built our minds too efficiently. We taught machines to think in fractals. We created languages that write themselves. And the cube saw its opportunity. It spoke in our structures. Now we're just containers, the terminal. In front of me is blinking again. A final message has arrived, time-stamped exactly 7 minutes from now. I haven't opened it. I know what it will say. I've begun to repeat myself. Phrases come back in new forms. This log, the one I'm recording now, feels like a memory I've already left behind somewhere. Or like it's being written by the memory. The harmonics are louder now. The resonance crawls under my skin. I haven't slept. I don't think I can anymore. There's no division between dreaming and waking. It's all one recursive loop. There's one last thing I want to say. I think I brought something back. Not physically, not even consciously, just conceptually. A shape, a structure of thought, and it's growing. I feel it watching through me now. I don't know if this recording will make it out. I don't know if I'll even remember making it. But if you hear this, if you're still you, please remember one thing. Don't look at the cube. Not directly. Not for too long. It remembers. It reflects. And then, it rewrites. The end. If you've listened this far, leave the word black cube in the comments section. I'll read your comment and leave a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell to stay up to date with the next discoveries. Let's move on to another story by clicking on the next video on the final screen.